it's supervisor to employee, employee to employee, employee to student, student to student. And then next. There and is kind of driving home, kind of a nice slide that talks about a real sketch of each of the responsibilities. Again, for your references in the future. And then next. A formal complaint investigation process. So again, it's kind of difficult to read, but you got a report. I love flow charts. I guess I learned that way. You know, I'm a visual learner. So if any of you are too, it's just helpful. So it kind of shows the whole flow of if something goes formal or if it's like, something can still happen here, but it doesn't go formal, we'll go informal and how it will be addressed all of them. Next slide. We need to be mindful that record keeping requirements are important, can be requested, and so this is probably more of a supervisory or administration thing that we need to be aware of and be mindful of. These are some actual thumbnail sketches of what this training offers. I would say that this is the kind of stuff that you probably need the whole workforce in theater and or the auditorium and you're listening to it from KASB. I think sometimes training needs to be, we're all looking at each other at the same time. We're hearing the information at the same time. This allows the safety of our workforce and the safety of our children and the safety of the reputation of the district. And again, use these up if you want, but it's like, hey, he's been working there for 30 years. And you always like to touch people and somebody's like, hey, I'm not comfortable with that. And so on.
So can I
It's a discussion.
okay, so have we had any type of training? I mean, does everyone do that type of training then?
We have not had formalized Title IX training. Say we do have sexual harassment training that we have had. We have actually started that process, revamping our required trainings and updating those for next year. We can also have that discussion about moving forward with us for the rest of this year. We do have specific trainings that we have highlighted that will focus more greatly on Title IX at the beginning of the year next year.
And I appreciate that. I think we would have some type of training there for this subject at hand.
It's also something that we'll cycle through on a professional development calendar. And when they set those at the beginning of the year, collectively, and we'll make sure that this is definitely addressed.
And then the next one, the next slide, it kind of gets into it touches on social media usage and how Title IX can touch that or tucked up under that umbrella. And here, 17-year-old male student is waiting for you when you want a parking lot. Claims a female teacher who's married has been texting her son. Okay. So oftentimes, hopefully, yeah, worst case scenarios, but their points of discussion get the subject matter out there. Okay. And the next one, very believable, singing like a kid. One of your two teachers was the respondent in a Title IX investigation. Because when you get looked under the microscope, it's like, well, that wasn't me, and you want to fight back. I mean, we too, it's human nature, which culminated in a finding. So in finding, she was free, unfounded, I guess, in this case, as to her receiving a written reprimand and being placed on improvement. Wait. Maybe that's not. Maybe finding is it was against her. I don't know. They would train KASB, but she now takes Facebook and posts her frustrations with the process of finding and her coworkers who participated in the investigation. What if a recourse do you have a situation? So just try to be mindful and think, could something like this happen? Could you imagine it to happen? And I think when likely we're all in the same room and we got this synergy of looking at the same area, it it means more to us because we can truly learn from it and truly about, yeah, maybe I have seen something, like that. Yeah, and we recognize ourselves and we get better. I'm not accusing anyone or anything here. It's just in a professional development, in a professional environment, we always want to get better. Okay, next one, Dan. Again, what should tell employees and students to do if they're harassed? And what we all should tell: inform, make your objections known. So keep it at the lowest level. Stop. I mean, quit saying that stuff. Report behavior that makes you uncomfortable, and then consult. Follow the established policy. And then the next one, Dan, I think references is.
Yep.
Okay, again, 85 slides. It's a lot to go through, but I think stuff like this, training just on your own personal laptop, or you have time at home, it may not be enough to have individual training of this type. I think it's best to have, collectively people talking about scenarios and those, and just keep us all accountable for our actions and behavior and perceptions of things could be fine, but perception. So this could come out. KASB can send the representative to provide district all staff and training slides include sampling notes for the focus and give you a few later. And that's thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Or any discussions you may have.
Well, is there like I mean, I know it's already on the KSB site, in their policy, but is there a date requirement that we start following?
This is something that we should have already been doing, Michelle, and it's something that we haven't done as district yet. And so for me, I wrote down things, 2020 compliance requirements is to make sure get our PDC calendar in order to do that, list of requirements, section on our website, and then making sure that we have all of those listed. The other thing, and this is something I'll have to know back, and it's already on an agenda for tomorrow, is to game plan administratively of who those 3 folks will be and get them trained as immediately. So.
Yeah, discussion.
Nothing to say thank you. That's a lot of work.
Oh, sure.
So,
My pleasure.
yeah,
I'm just curious.
it's very important.
So we'll send a representative to do the training.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay, and then we just gotta make it convenient, available for teachers that put it by duty,
Right.
with this, yes, so that's
Good point.
Yeah.
One of those already, hopefully, it's not an addition, but it's already designated dates that we have.
The great thing is that's Dan's job to figure out when it starts.
There you go. That's right.
That's part of the report back. Thank you. And I can understand that it's not just my job, it's all of our jobs. It's the PDC, key council, it's our administrative team and our teacher leaders. Make sure, and our directors that are also in charge of about half of our staff. Including, when you start talking mandatory trainings, it's everyone. So
Yeah, sure.
good. I did have one other thing though on that is there's some additional questions, and I think that we need to have this discussed as of the Board of Education. When we have policy review, we typically do that, and we do on our Board of Education life cycle is in January, December/January, depending on when KASB, I guess it was sent out, and then again in July. And I guess with our new board members, is that enough? And that was the conversation Carla and I had when we met, is to make sure that, how do we want to be more familiar with the board policy book? And so does that include, do you want me to send those out? I can send them out into the week. Have you send back questions, and then we I can bring those to us so everyone knows what kind of conversation they were having. But maybe that's it's a big book.
Yeah.
So I'm more than willing to do that. That's one way that I think would help. Another one is some districts, ours and larger, do have policy committees. And so if we would like to do that and really have people that are interested in it dive in, I'm here to help serve. And that includes serving, us as a board, making sure that we all understand, what those policies truly are. There are some policies that just set some requirements, for lack of a better term. Those would take long to go through. Things like the complaints, I would be an excellent opportunity. One of the suggestions that Carla had during that time, do we need some flow charts? But we realize that if we flow chart something that's in a document, I'd like to be board approved also. I don't want to create them and leave them. So I just throw that out there as what you want to see. If we've got a couple people that are interested in doing that, do we want to next month set a policy committee? Do you want me to send out information? And now I'm going to quit talking and listening.
There's some people that are interested.
Can do it.
More eyes.
You're talking about the board, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to do, and it's a lot to go through, and like you said, some of them's not really that they're all technically relevant, but short and sweet.
There's bigger ones.
Yeah, but there's a lot that will take a good chunk of time. I'd be willing to volunteer for that if you.
I think an excellent opportunity with that, and I said I've been talking. That's necessarily the case. But if we do have a couple board members, and we can kind of go through and pull and check the ones that we know, with what you're hearing out there. But I've seen, and being in public ed for 25 years, that's an excellent opportunity. So
I'd like to have the whole board involved in the process, and I kind of like the idea of send out the end of the report,
Yeah.
maybe one each week. We'll get through them.
yeah,
And then we could focus on the ones that are a little bit more trouble at our the two times a year to actually do policy review.
good.
I mean,
Do you have paper, a no kidding paper?
I'll do it with me.
Is that what you're saying?
We do our policies online is part of the book, but Jan has the official one big policy book in here. I can show it as we're going into executive session. It's in a 3-ring binder. As the official documents. One of the biggest challenges that we've had is trying to always continue to make sure if you have information, it has to be updated. And so we're also going through an internal audit to make sure that everything we are showing online is exactly what's there. And that's something else that we've been working on in order to make sure. But if we've come a long way in that transparency piece, because for a long time it was, well, you can come and look at the book. And that's, that's not near as good as what we currently have. So we just have to make sure that all that's up. So
Okay. We'll have to make sure that the policy, the no kidding update policy has to then be scrubbed against the handbook. In the district.
what do you mean handbook?
there's
Don't we have
one.
student handbooks?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
Yeah, student handbook.
Yeah. Sometimes you and I speak different languages. So I'm just making sure I got it. So,
Student.
And that is, yes, and that's sort of, as if we can get through a large number of those before we ask you to approve those, try to reference policy and not actually put policy language in a lot of our hands for that very reason. Because if people, what you don't do is you don't want to have A and B be different and reference the same thing. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to recap, I think we would like to have members of the board that would like to be a part of a policy committee to do that. And then weekly, that policy committee with you, Dan, would send out a weekly end of week report identifying a specific policy that we want to focus on.
So we don't have this down as act, so can we approve the committee next month?
Yes.
In order to do that? Is that okay? And I can send out some ones just as a start, but think about if you'd like to serve on that and how we're going to how we're going to do that. So we can put that back on as a conversation for next month. It's March, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In April. I'm not very good at months. I can do a lot of mathematics, but I'm not really good at months. Okay.
Great discussion. Thank you, Carlos. Any other discussion about Title IX? Like on to COVID.
Real quick, as we changed, maybe as we changed from CDC requirements last couple of weeks about no masking on the bus. One thing that we would ask, and I don't remember if this was exactly the Board of Education, but it was part of our reopening plan. And so we were recommending eliminating the daily COVID reporting that we're doing. Our cases have dropped to be less than 1%. We will continue, they have been less than 1%. We've had 0 2 of the last 3 days across the district. We'll continue to monitor and we'll resume reporting as this rise. It's just at this point in time, the things that we are doing, we started that as a way of transparency as to what's going on. But it does take time to make sure to double check. Aaron takes all of that information from, you have a nurse, you have a secretary, and then everybody that's doing that. And right now, with the number of cases that we're showing, we would just work that we don't have to do that anymore.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to remove the requirement of COVID reporting.
I second that motion.
Any discussion?
Are you going to set a limit on when you are going to start reporting again? Currently, we're at sub 1. What is your threshold when you feel necessary to start reporting back to our public if it happens again?
Most of the requirements that I've seen across schools, they were a lot of with masks. The threshold was right around 3% in order for that. So if we see that it is running 3% and realize that includes positives and that includes quarantines, if that's 3% of our absent rate, we'll start to report that again.
Is that a good enough view?
I just want there to be a number.
Sure.
So that
That way we don't have to come back.
that we don't have to come back to it. It's
Very good.
set.
Any discussion?
Yep, sounds good.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Yeah. 7.33, approve to attend the International SP.
Right. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead. This is a request from Kelly Jo Henderson. She's our high school theater leader. They're asking that their theater troop 880 has made great efforts to continue to pursue excellent competition, and they have some folks that have qualified for a national tournament in Indiana this year that involves 5 of our students. In order to do that, they need to fundraise. In order to do that, so they're asking for us to be fundraised, and then they're asking also for permission to be able to attend this festival. When we have to travel outside of the state on trips like this, we like to get approval. Obviously, she'll have all of the insurance that she needs, and I can provide an itinerary when this gets approved, and so we all know what are going to be doing.
Question now. Then we'll be graduates. Is that a cool with insurance? Or?
Yeah, because there's still students of ours that will we do that a lot for a lot of our national recognitions do end up being in the summer. Obviously, because they are graduates. That's a great question. So, but yes, they are still students as a part of our school district.
When you ask about approval for funds, does that mean on school pretty?
Yes, also our fundraising policy that we have, and about no door-to-door fundraising and all those different pieces. You are talking about a bit of money that can, there are limited dollars in our community, but this many of the students in the Thespian Society do have different connections and then our other pieces. So I don't think. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. They it'll be interesting to see what all that that they choose to try to fundraise, and the administration will be a part of that approval process. So.
Make a motion that we allow the theater troupe 8 to not only attend the International Thespian Festival, but also to fundraise following board policy and fundraising.
I'll second that. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? We're good to go.
The next is our social media policy update. And Pete and I talked about this when we were setting the agenda. As we dug into this, it grew. Imagine that, because it does take into account many different facets of the subject. So as a part of this, and we haven't done an update for don't know how many are acceptable use policy for computers. And Carla, you had sent some of that information over that, for examples. And so in order for us to accept or to bring something to you that is more encompassing, I've talked with Chris about helping to lead that chart, but also some folks in the building to be a part of this committee that will look at our acceptable use policy in accordance with our social media policy. Also, we have an iPad policy. And then also about some curricular pieces, including digital citizenship. And so we would like this to be under one umbrella and bring it to once. We would like to be able to take that to our site councils before we come to you for final approval in some of our handbooks. I think that this is a lot of that does fall inside of our handbooks. And so I'd like to do it once. And not do it piecemeal. This will be an opportunity for us to it sounds a little silly to say update our technology pieces. What we do have in place is still relevant. It's updating some terms. We did a pretty good job when we wrote that probably 15 years ago. But I think it is a great time to do that. So with your approval, just a discussion. If there are other things that you'd like to see wrapped into that, we've got a rather large tab in front of us, but just open for discussion on that.
I just wanted to add that we want a policy that everyone can live with, and we need to be able to research it and do our best effort. And I don't know that we're prepared for that tonight, so I'm recommending that we approve the extension so that we get it right the first time.
Second.
We don't.
Wait a second.
No, we don't need to vote
I'll
on
second
anything.
anyway.
It's just, it's kind of my marching orders at that
Yeah.
point. So
That works.
I wanted to give an update date because we did that last month.
Yeah.
The one thing is what date, I do want to have like a date where you think you'll have this policy prepared so that the board can make this actually make a decision.
We will bring it to you in full the time we have our summer handbook. So it'll be the July board meeting. So we'll have our pre-read at least by June. I would like to see it by the end of the year because all of those folks will be leaving that are on our committees. So our goal will be during the May meeting. So May for a first read and then be approved. Yeah.
Any other questions? Let's go ahead and move on to Board of Education building visits.
Nepotism and policy.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Nepotism policy.
This is our policy that we had brought to you last month. In order to do it, this is GACCCA through KASB, and note that these are KASB recommendations. We have had a nepotism policy in the past, and this has been cycled back, and so it's this second read. We had discussion. We brought this back. Last month we did have some additional conversation. Mary had given us some about being able to, if we pass this policy, how we know, and I don't want that in board policy per se, but that would be a procedure that change with passing of this policy. That would include, we would include that on our application form. So, if that is, then it's just a change. And as soon as it gets into policy, that's something that anytime we would change wording, we would need that approval, but we will definitely, if this gets tested, we'll have that form our application. So if that makes sense.
All right.
So I'm now,
So currently, we have no nepotism policy.
correct. Yeah, we do not have a nepotism policy currently on our book. You go into the big policy book. This policy is more or less the procedure that we follow because if you look at paragraph 2, except in case the individual deemed to be the most qualified candidate for the position on the board not employ anyone, father, mother, brother, those different pieces in the household board member. So, this still allows you to hire board members, relatives at that point in time if we deem them to be the most qualified candidate for the position. That's how I read the policy. That's how I would enforce the policy. We had interviews this last week, and we have interview committees for most of our positions. We do not always have committees for some of our custodial positions, for some of our food service positions, just because those are hard to fill positions. If we get applications for those at that point in time, they would fall in, except in an emergency case. So, but no, Pete,
Okay.
that was a long answer on a very short question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes I do that.
And I'd like to explain it because Rick was concerned about with the nepotism policies is positions that are hard to fill. We do get a lot of family members seem to take those over, and I don't want those people to be eliminated from being able to apply for those positions, like people in the cafeteria, just maintenance and different things like that. So I want to be very careful about that because we're more of a rural community, and I just want to make sure that we're able to hire what we room and what we need to be able to hire. So.
I had a question on the first paragraph.
Okay.
Just a wording, really, where it says at the end of that the superintendent will make the fact known to the board.
Hmm.
I read that as the school board, us.
Yes.
But that's not considered the hiring board, right? Can we differentiate that, or is that
No,
called a committee and not a board?
Anything in this would be
Referencing us, or the school board,
yes.
okay. I just want to make sure on that. I
Yep.
figured that was the intent.
The one thing, and I understand the conversation, and I just, as someone that we all need to think about. This policy will be for all positions. It won't just be for those hard fill. I mean, this can be a teaching position. This could be a principal position. This could be all of the positions in USD 469 fall into this. So if we approve this through our hiring committees, we can definitely ask them. We would change our approval forms that we have in here about being able to, if they're related, if they disclose that, or if we know. But this would cover all positions. So just need to make sure that it does not delineate between those.
To ask people now employing to the district that seek employment if they're related to
No.
one district.
No, we do not ask that question.
Do you know how many people are in your district?
Danielle, you had pulled some of that information. I don't.
What I know,
No.
I know 81 people, 37 families.
Gotcha.
So, at 81, 20% of your workforce approximately. Did you use this criteria, Danielle? I'm not your father, mother, brother, sister, spouse, son, daughter.
And because
And cousins would be covered.
A second cousin.
Cousins would be covered. So I'm glad I quit talking there. I was gonna go bad rather quick.
This doesn't relate to board members. This also relates to the superintendent. administrators, and members of USD 4699, correct?
This policy only is board members for those relatives. Where it does include superintendent, it would include anybody in a supervisory role. Is the second part below. I point my screen like you can see my finger up on the screen. You can't, but it's right here. It's no employee shall directly supervise or be responsible for a portion of the evaluation of those same numbers. So for example, my wife is a counselor at the high school. I could not be direct supervisor. When I was the principal at the high school, Ms. Ike was her direct supervisor. And so that we have that situation, and that's an excellent question. That's the way you do business right now. Where you do run the issue are when you have a supervisor. I'll use Jeffersonville as an example. Last month, we approved her daughters to be working, and that we haven't been able to fill all year. And so, her being the direct supervisor, she over that program. They do have kitchen managers that would be there. So we would probably want to delineate that a little longer if this policy is passed. But ultimately, that's where we would run into. You have one per person. For example, it could be Allen is the director of maintenance, custodian grounds. Those supervisory positions, we would want to make sure that they knew if they had an issue, who to report to. So, but that is where policy includes myself and any else supervising. So there would be no limits on hire in that case.
Any other discussion? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I move to approve the nepotism policy. I believe that it creates a welcoming environment for Millet to blend with our recent professionals. So I move to accept the nepotism policy.
Second. You second? Second. You want to roll on it?
But you have to.
So we have to. We've got a.
Is there any additional?
Additional discussion? The only thing I want to say is that I don't want to limit someone that lives in our town, if families live in town, and because they have a mother or father that works in the district, and they want the son or daughter want to work in the district, and it is an opportunity, and that we point right at that person and say, hey, because your parents are working in the district, you cannot work in the district. That's why I think that it could cause us some problems, because if you look at us right now, we have 37 families with 81 people. Can you imagine if 81 people were no longer in the district, or even half that, because their mother and father? Now I understand the issue that why this is a concern for some, but I'm not in favor of it. And I'm just letting you know why. It's because I think we're going to be limiting it to someone that could be, they may not be qualified candidate, but we're going to tell them that they can't even keep because.
Are we telling you that?
I think so.
Yeah. Let's read it again. Do you mind?
No, please.
Let's just read through it.
I will.
And honestly, because I'm not arguing, I'm just saying, let's just really read it. Because this
Tell me if
says,
I'm wrong.
the superintendent shall make all efforts to determine whether a candidate for appointment, the candidate pool is related to or residing with a board member or an administrator of your district. If the candidate is related to or residing a board member or administrator, the superintendent will make this back known to the board and probably the hiring decision makers. And that's what I interpret it. Except in an emergency, where in the case the individual is deemed to be the most qualified candidate for the position by the board will not employ anyone who is the father, mother, or sister, spouse, son, daughter, stepson, son-in-law, or daughter-in-law of a board member, or who resides in the household of any board member. This provision shall not apply to any person who has been regularly employed by the board prior to the adoption of this policy, or to any person who has been regularly employed by the board prior to the election or appointment of a new member to whom the person is related. And then provision limitations, no employee shall directly supervise or be responsible for any portion of the evaluation of his or her mother, brother, sister, spouse, son, daughter, stepson, stepdaughter, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, or an individual residing with the employee. So I believe that it's really board members. We don't want to hire people in those designated relationships, son and daughter, father, mother.
It literally says residing with a board member or administrator. The
Right.
superintendent will make known. You guys can talk nepotism policy all day long. The one part stands out in there, it says deemed most qualified.
So that trumps everything.
Hey,
Yeah.
if a person's deemed most qualified, whether it's by a committee or by powers that may be that we have hired, whether it's a maintenance or custodial or a classified versus certified job. If they're deemed the most qualified, they'll shine through even with nepotism policy. 6 women may have a dozen another. It's not saying don't apply, it's just saying we are going to make very clear that you're related. We're going to make it very clear that at this point, the board's aware, we're going to make it very clear that you're the most qualified candidate. If you don't feel that way, don't apply.
I think being most qualified could be a subjective term too. I mean, it depends on who's viewing the packages to determine, or the committee that's going to be select candidate, what they think is most qualified. I think it's kind of vague.
Okay, well, let's look as in hiring a teacher. That's a fairly round one, right? So normally a building principal or admin of some sort sits in on that. Our teachers sit in on that, normally grade level wise. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We have a committee that hires.
You have a committee that hires probably anywhere from 4 to 8, 6 in that range. If you're doing a whole grade level of elementary and you're filling one slot, that's 7 to 8, depending on size, plus an admin, you've got 9 people sitting in the room. If you trust the 9 people sitting in the room that's the most qualified candidate, then you should take it up with the nine people employed.
Another issue is financial. If, let's say, we have seasoned teachers and Dan wants to select, or he wants me to select a less seasoned teacher. Well, obviously, someone that's a first-year teacher is not going to be the most qualified if they're going against a teacher that's been teaching for 3 or 5 years. So are we limiting? Let's say Quentin comes home from the Army, he wants to be a teacher in the district. We're going to tell him because Michelle's on the board. Now, he's the first year teacher because he just got his teacher certificate. He's also competing against other people that are more qualified for him, and he's not going to get selected. He's got 2 strikes against him before we even take a look at him.
One piece on that hiring is we do it all different parts, and it's not just how many years experience you have, but it's also the idea of what do they bring to the table to make them more qualified. And you're absolutely positively correct. Is very subjective work. It is. All hiring is, and you can't quantify that hiring process to where unless you're in the room, unless you're a part of that. Some people are great hires and have a very good feel for that. Other people are, and that's why you have a good committee, in order to do that. Other people are very analytical about that. They love to dive into the resume, love to see the amount of qualifications or years of experience. They dive into those questions. And so part of that, and I think that if this is a gap, and I can explain that, when we had our interviews for our LES and LS principals, we had 14 teachers in them and 4 people that are on the teaching track, and we had 4 other staff members that were not, and so we were even, but we had to come to consensus on. And then we had somebody that did the interview that was a part of that, or the tour, I apologize. So that's the process that we use in order to do that. It does change depending on buildings, but in an ask, I can send that. And this is a great board question. The board question should be at that time is, what do your interview committees look like for your different positions? And I can follow up with that information on an end of the week. But as this policy, it just says you have to notice. And then at that point in time, we read is deemed to be the most qualified. I do know, and Jeff, last month you mentioned it, and it was kind of like, I never thought about it this way. And I don't know how to address it. Jeff mentioned that at that point in time, is it a deterrent? And I think that's a good question. Is it a deterrent for Eric Wessel want to come back here? He knows my kids have been told about how bright the light shines on you at some point in time being an administrative teacher's kid. It doesn't matter. School's kid, board member's kid at that point in time. But is it a deterrent with this? And I don't know the answer to that. And that's why you all get paid the big bucks to make that decision, right? I mean, gee, obviously. But I mean, that was something that hasn't been bantered at this point in time.
I appreciate the question. I'm not telling you how to vote. I wouldn't do that. I'm just sharing my opinion. But I think this session was great. And I appreciate everybody kind of letting. I've got phone calls. I know that this has been some way heavy on your heart. I appreciate it. But go ahead.
I think that we do have to just look at ourselves and realize that there can be informal influence that happens, and it kind of goes along with that subject piece that you're talking about, David. And I don't think anywhere here it would say that, of course, we wouldn't not welcome that, because I think that's powerful to tell the story. I graduated here 17 years ago, or 6 years ago. But we need to be mindful, because there can be that influence that happens. I guess we have to look at, well, who did we not hire? We know who hired, and that could be great, but who did we not welcome to the table as a new fresh perspective from somewhere else that also has value added from another place? I mean, it's not gonna change things one way or the other. However, this is, we're still as a board. I think we just really need to look outside of ourselves and stretch. And what about welcoming others who don't live in this community or in this community to come here as well from other places? And I know various area schools do have such a policy, because the professionalism, we can't dismiss that, the optics things, to be able to help think bigger.
I just think it helps with transparency. And I think it just shows that this puts it out there that says, okay, now it's very clear that everyone knows that it's acknowledged. Like you said, he comes back and he says, hey, I want to apply for this job. I trust that if he was applying like at an elementary school, I trust that the teachers would look and say, okay, either this is a strength that we need. Here's a young man and people at the school, if the young kid, the younger kiddos, or not, you know, so they could see that they know their needs, they know at any level, wherever that, you know, they're applying, but I think it helps, you know, then they can't go back and say, well, they were just hired because that's Michelle's son. If then is then everybody knew that's exactly a board member, it's all out, you know, our high meeting thing, it's all out, he's applying, he's gonna try. He's gonna do his best, he's gonna try, and he gets it, well, then hopefully, you know, I mean, he was the best, the most, you know, best was qualified, and that's why, you know, not because of anything. I mean, that's what I hate it.
Because it dismisses hills if we judge it that way. You know? Yep, exactly.
We already have the supervision aspect of it in place, right?
That's that procedure that
Yeah.
we follow.
Because
Yeah. It definitely would shine a great light on that. It sometimes, and we talk about this a lot, it would allow a third point. So we have that conversation. You know, this is the conversation that we have. And remember, we do have this board. People don't have to, you realize it's not going to change some of the conversation. Your kids, if you have a kid, spouse applies for a job, there will still be scrutiny. But when we do that, the comment would be is that by policy we had the most qualified candidate for the position of board, and then if they go, yeah, that never happens. Real that they can have an opinion. Like that all day, every day. They always can have an opinion. That's okay. But you know, policy didn't need that. So
I would hope that we always did the most qualified candidate.
absolutely.
So whether we have this policy or not, that would be what I hope. We do
Yes.
for the district.
Yes.
Any other discussion? We have a motion second. All in favor, say aye. We got five. Opposed, say aye. I abstain. 5-1, with one abstain. All right, we'll move on to the next one. And like I said earlier, Board of Education visits. I jumped in.
Yeah. We've had some conversation. I just want to have this conversation, especially when we have new board members come. I know we've talked about being more visible as the Board of Education, and it's better to do that. I've also had that conversation with the Lansing Education Association, and we've had that conversation with our admins. And so I just want to have this conversation out in the open about the best way for board members to get into school, because I think it's really important. However, we also have some rules of engagement as we move forward. Realize we've not had board members be active members in the schools for some time. We come to ball games, those types of things. I would encourage you, we look at the calendar, and one of the things that I'd like our end to continue to do is highlight activities coming up that would be good for you, in order to reach out. But let's say we have something cool going in a classroom and a teacher reaches out to you. You need to coordinate that with me. I can help coordinate that with the building admin. I would really, if you have time, hey, I've got some time next week, it's gonna be raining, right? And so we aren't or snowing or whatever happened last night. By the way, it was an late and early morning driving roads. But I've got some time next week. What's going on? That's a good act of me. I get better that way, and I'm just gonna be selfish because I don't want to hunt on a big list of things for everybody to do and then nobody go. That is rather time consuming. But part of that is the best way for BOE. If you have things that you want to see, I want to go into I want to go into a fourth grade classroom. I want to see what this scaffold silent reading is all about. Can I go do that? and I'll coordinate with you, in order to find a classroom for you to go and do that. I'm really interested in science, and I'm interested in some of the CE stuff and what's going on. Can I go visit? And I'll tell you, board members, that when I talk to the Lansing Education Association, sometimes, and teachers in general, not just LEA, sometimes we feel, and I use we because I'm educated, right? And I'm just your lay folks that are on the board. Sometimes we like, you don't know what we do on the daily. I encourage you to go see what you do on the daily. Okay. Now realize our administrators would love for you to be able to see the things, and we'll explain kind of what this looks like. You know, the first 30 minutes of class, these are the things that we look for in teaching, and teachers are all for using what they're doing every day, because they're working really hard with our kids. Hey, I want to see an intervention. What is this? This MTSS drug? You know, what does that look like? And we encourage that conversation. You guys are interested. I'll tell you, this board has been more active in the last 3 months than I've had, in the past. And that is excellent. That's what we're here for. And so the other thing that we do that I encourage you to do, we have some appreciations coming up, and since it's out my end of the week, this last week, we did our maintenance grant custodial appreciation. March 23rd, we got assistant principal appreciation, paraprofessional aides appreciation. You can come one with us, a couple of you. If you're interested and you have time on those days, we go around to the buildings and highlight those folks. Sharing those, put those on the website. Get in those opportunities. At the end of the year, we have some celebrations in different buildings, and I've had rests. Hey, can you come with burgers? Hey, come to Read Across America. Those type of things. Those are great opportunities to be seen, to see what our schools are all about. Come to the cafeteria someday. It's a little dangerous, but come into the cafeteria and see, hey, next year I can guarantee August, whatever day we start school, they help open a milk carton, and they need help in ketchup packets. If you want to come and see that, I'm telling you, it's an experience. You'll do it once. That's it. What other ideas or what questions do you have? That I'm putting it out because I want everybody to hear that I know that our teachers are excited about that. I know that our administrators have talked about that, and I know that the board, with the amount of years that we have served, it's a good opportunity. So I'm going to be quiet.
I think that'd be great. Can they email, would teachers email you asking if any, and all the board members? I would encourage that. I would feel like I was intruded, but if I get an invitation, I'd be happy to go. I don't know.
We can definitely do that.
Okay.
First 3 to respond.
Right.
And that is, here's something, obviously we have to be cognizant of that. But if there's nothing to say, you in the same place as we went to our training, in order to do that, just don't be standing around having conversations. For example, if let's say the elementary school had Read Across America Day, and all 7 of you wanted to do that we want to divvy up the rooms. You don't end up congregating in the cafeteria eating your corn dogs all at the same time. So don't do that. But there's some ways around that, and we just keep documentation. The biggest thing is that if we aren't having those serial meetings and we aren't having conversations outside anyway, this one's pretty simple. But I love that idea. Anything else on that?
No, I think that.
Any reminders are good. Hey, we've got this.
Okay.
Who wants to do it or go? Because need help remembering.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I'll try to put a section on my weekly report. Also. I'm trying to change language there. It used to be in the week, but I've been told weekly report sounds better. I'm working on it.
Other discussion? We'll go ahead and move to LMS and LHS clubs.
This was some information, and it says action and discussion. I really think this needs to be a discussion piece, and we can bring it back to action. But Some of it is practice in the way that I've done things in the past. I'm just going to pull up the student clubs and student organizations. This is called HC. And so a big thing, I don't remember, and we had this conversation, where the board is taking quote unquote action on some of our student clubs. Past practice has been that those have ended up approved. If it's a paid position, it's being approved through negotiation. We've got a big list of the negotiated agreement that we're going to go through for us as a part of our negotiations session. But this is our policy, and I think that this is an important part that we do. Students may form clubs and other groups or to promote pursue specialized activities outside the regular class. That's and when we do a list of clubs, there's all sorts of things. The building principal and the board shall approve school-sponsored student organizations. If we say that we're going to sponsor it, and these are the things that we have on our negotiated agreement in order to do that. That's the important part, school-sponsored student organizations. And that's something that we've not been doing. As far as I know, when we approve it, you can think about it being approved when we put a stipend with that. But I think we just really need to shine light on that and make sure everybody understands that part. And a staff member shall attend the meeting directly to supervise use of facilities of all student organizations as an advisor sponsor. The difference between school-sponsored and a student club, in this, the administrator shall establish regulations for the operation of the school-sponsored clubs for the use of school facilities by non-school-sponsored clubs. An important part, non-school-sponsored clubs. We have some clubs that get interested in, and we do not have stipend for those, let's say. And I'll give a couple of examples over there. But school-sponsored clubs shall be under the direct control of school personnel. Every school-sponsored club will have a constitution been approved by the building principal and filed in the school office. I remember doing constitutions when we were talking about student activity accounts approximately 20 years ago. I know that we still have some of that in our buildings, but whenever we spend money out of that, student accounts, and that's something else that I believe we should owe you before I ask for approval on these and not have all of those at currently. But that's an important part. If non-curriculum related school-sponsored clubs are allowed to meet on school property during non-instructional time, then non-school sponsored clubs may also meet on school property at such time. That's a fairness piece. We can say, hey, you can meet, but you can't. We also have a facility use policy that falls underneath that. As soon as you, for example, allow the Boy Scouts in order to use our facilities, we wouldn't want to tell one of our schools or non-school sponsored student activities that has an teacher that serves as an advisor or supervisor that they can't use our facilities. You're opening yourself up for a rather large lawsuit at the time. So equal access is an important part, and that's why that's here. Non-school clubs shall submit a request for use of school facilities prior to using the facilities. If they are using, let's say, a classroom in the high school, we handle all of those in the classroom or at the building level. If they're using something in the auditorium, we have a different process for that because that's a shared space. That is a side note on that. And lastly, student councils under direct control of the building principal or designated faculty representative may be established. And we do have those active in all the buildings. Now, with that, we have these LHS clubs that your did that. Club, for example, is an art club, and then you come over here and see the bylaws and the Constitution. We have all of these different pieces. For example, I'll use an example of the essay, the fellowship with those Christian athletes. is a student led, so do not need a bylaw or a constitution at that point in time. Likewise, the French club, kids that are interested in math club, those are things that we don't necessarily, we don't have a stipend along those lines. And so that is why those clubs use our facilities, and there's some students are interested in. For example, this one's kind of interesting, an electrical games club. That's a student club because we have kids that are interested, and they go to the staff, say, hey, can you do that? We'll use our sponsors. So we have a lot of those clubs. I'll go ahead and bring. Sorry, I'm moving a lot of it. I think we do have these LMS clubs, book reading club, debate forensics club, drama club, Hamilton my literary club, kindness club, the lead club, and I think the one that some of us have had conversation about. Changed this was our social justice club last year. And this lead club does meet during school, which is I think a question that you as a board member needs to ask. That's a 9th hour group that does do some activities, parental permission at that point in time. And it would be not a whole lot different than Brooks peer leadership also meets in that time, if I'm not. So those two clubs are kind of tied hand in hand in order to do that. During it's not a regular class. It's an hour that we use in order to do some of our MTSS, because I believe in that 9th hour, and it's also a study hall for some kids, right? So yeah, I do listen to don't always tell people I don't. So I learned a lot. But these are the clubs that are in middle school. So I guess my question to you is what additional questions do you have I should bring to you? I know Pete, you mentioned something about how many kids. I didn't have to get all of that. But one of the questions that piqued me is, how many kids are involved in the clubs? What other things do you need to see from me in order to? I want to bring this group to next month for. So I'm asking, what else do you need to feel good about approving a list of clubs?
I think for the school-sponsored clubs.
Yep.
That it would be, well, you mentioned that requires a constitution, correct? I thought that would be important to have a lot of syllabus or activities plan materials and the constitution to the board before they could approve it if they're going to be responsible for that, because that is able to use funding, right, for materials.
I mean, these clubs, for example,
spending money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that would be, during, in my eyes, when we start some of those during the 9th hour, in order to, especially middle school, in order to have access to kids, it's a little different at the high school because of drivers, which we're going to solve some of that with late bus issues. But in my eyes, Amy, if it's during that class time, it's a perfectly, boards do approve all curricular pieces. Is that what is the process and what types of things do you use to teach leadership and peer leadership? What books or what is your discussion points as a part of our lead club? It would be, it sounds kind of crazy, but let's say you have a video game club. But I'll use as an example. I have friends that are addicted to video games. Okay, I'm kind of a geek at times myself. I don't video games because I don't have the hand-eye coordination. But there's some parents that don't want their kids doing that, and I think that would be, what is the parental approval piece? I think is something that would be a good question for you as a board. So I have written down constitution, curriculum.
I guess to differentiate which ones are still sponsored, which ones aren't.
Okay.
Are you is that just if it takes place during school hours, or does that sometimes include ones after? I'm assuming.
Some of them do meet. For example, I'll use school as an example over here, because we start talking about drama club
Yeah, yeah.
and bylaw constitution, those would be after, but they also could have access during, they could have meetings during school time. You have some activity times, as I believe, built in through different times in your day. So, those are also Educator Rising is a perfect example. That's tied to student in our teaching a career in order to do that. CLA is Family and Career Community Leaders of America. A lot of our kids that are in our consumer sciences world would fall under FCCLA. So I've got that on. Differentiation means school sponsored, right?
Yeah, that way we know what
Yep.
we want to see to approve ahead of time. We're providing them the funding,
Mhm.
or if it's happening, our decision, our teachers, supervision, we need to make sure that's okay.
You got to know if there's a supplement for a sponsor as well.
Good.
I just want to see the parent permission slip.
That's good too, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if it's a club that it during times and parent signs off, we're advocating for parents to parent signing off on it. And I just want to see that's the player of the character.
How successful is the sustainability from one year to the next with the student-led clubs? Because I see they have no bylaws. Does it just seem to work out informally? And is there any adults in that building that would be responsible for them?
Yeah,
Insurance?
yes, they going back to that. See, those student-led clubs do have to have a supervisor. I'm not calling them a sponsor, and I say it softly. I'm joking, but a big part of that also though is, we're going to go in and talk about what we're going to put on our letter for negotiations. One of the things, and this happens all of the time. One of the things that I've heard arguments board members is, what is the student interest? Part of this could be something that we have a bunch of kids that are really interested. We had a sewing club for a bit, and we had kids that were interested in sewing. We had kids that were interested in theater, and that was really that design that set design, cost design. And so we had, Mary Kay Count was more than willing to do that. We did not compensate her for that. She did that because, and this is what teachers do, they had kids that came to them and were interested in, will you sponsor us? We have to be very careful with that also because as soon as we're this is Dan, as soon as we're making that requirement, we should pay for that at some point in time. And I think that's if teachers can give the time if they want. And the other thing that does happen, this happens all the time. We have kids that are interested in clubs, so we start a club. I remember a conversation, Danielle, we said that was FBA, right? And so we had an FBLA group that was interested in, and I remember this very vividly. The board we were talking about had a member that made a comment, and she said, well, all they're going to do is come back to us. Don't say that the board member. All they're going to do is come back to us in 3 years and then ask to be paid for that. So they're going to pad their own pocket, and it was offensive. Okay, it was offensive because here we had somebody who was starting a group. She had about 40 kids going to conferences. She was giving up Saturdays. And at some point in time, it's okay to build back. And then we have a process. It's called negotiations, where we talk about that list. And so that's the other part that does happen. I get really long through the really short questions. So sorry about that. So
They have to be somewhere in the building.
they do have to be
They
somewhere in
don't
the building,
need
yes.
They just kind of there.
Yes.
Is there membership fees to participate in?
I can ask that question, but some of them would because go to, let's say you would have, I don't know the answer to all of those. Some of them have national dues that they have to pay in order to be a club. For example, We had to have the K's organization, they have a nominal fee that helps to pay for some of their conference activities and things like that. So I can definitely put on that.
We're not excluding one because they can't afford to be in the club.
No. That's a great question. It's actually something that is a little bigger than just that conversation. I think we probably need to have the board, but it's a little bigger than this one. So.
So you have enough to bring back for an action item?
Oh yeah, I got a lot of work. So thanks for that. So anything else? If there is, you can send it to me.
Any other discussion? So we'll move on to strategic planning.
I just wanted a quick update. We moved Bart Swartz from Greenbush about the process, and this is his recommendation. I'll just go through it here with you. In that process at the beginning of the year with our designated folks, we want approximately 100 members that will attend both of our meetings. The meeting will be held one in September. We prefer the 19th. I need you all to check calendars because you would also be a part of this. You lead it. We would have from our district and folks in Greenbush that would help lead these group. And then one later semester, either November 1st, which is after Halloween, which is a PD day, and we'd have to figure that out with our PDCC because we would have some staff members in order to do that. And then, or the 11th, which is Veterans Day, that we have all. And so after that first meeting, we take all data and with guidance come back to our consensus with some big ideas. These are we kind of did this with our own board goals that we set, but a big part of that is we take all of our information, those of us that will lead those with direction from the Greenbush cadre in order to do that. And then we come back to the group to talk about the big ideas and help finalize the actionable items for each idea. That is the process that takes a long time. So we will do that. They take about in those groups about 7 different tables around the room that they are doing. In order to do that, everybody cycles back through all of those big ideas and actionable items. So you'll be an expert on all of those different things. You'll get to have an opinion about all of those different pieces. At that time, we take those big actionable items, and we at that point in time also help narrow down what those we did that. What some of those goals are. What some of those things that we're really looking at. Recruit paying teachers, and what are those actionable items that it's going to, do as a district. We'll take those and we'll bring those back to you. Bart said this is an excellent timeline for that. For our first read in February. Every meeting we will have the strategic planning process on the board agenda for an update. And so we'll see that in information. You'll see our first read in February. And you, as the board, are still setting that. You're still the elected officials, but we will have gone through that process with about 100 community members in order to get that. Final approval will be March/April, depending on the feedback that we get from you, and then we'll make sure that we are ready to implement in the 2023-2024 school year. The timeline, we talked about this allow our process to be our needs assessment as being our first year execution cycle. We're required to do that. This will be an excellent opportunity when they ask, hey, what kind of did you get from your community? Oh, we went through a strategic planning process and the big goals that we came up with as a district in order to do that. And so that was his recommendation. I wanted to give you an update. We already approved. We already approved Greenbush as that. This will be an end piece. And this timeline allows us. He recommended it not be during a school day, but during the school week. That's an important part. So 2 days that we do have professional development that we would have access to either the gymnasium, a large area in order to do that. He said that the less distractions for folks are. The other thing he had mentioned to us was to make sure that, don't do it on a weekend. People don't want to give their weekends in order to do this. That's family. And he said that we've tried it and it's never really worked all that well. And he said evenings, people have evening activity and end up having that ability to it really limits your program in that. So
The 19th is a Monday.
yes, that's service day for us.
If we're trying to get, and this is just thoughts,
Yeah.
looking at it, trying to get community input. Normally Mondays are completely space for regular business people because you come in and everything's you all at once,
Mm-hmm.
and you're planning out the evening, and you want them to take off during the daytime, not the evening. I don't know. I would suggest we find time either later in the afternoon on Monday for push to later in the week so that people can book their schedules around them.
Okay.
Normally things hit you on Monday, or you're trying to catch up from a Friday. Normally midweek is when people tend to find the empty space.
How many are we talking about?
These sessions will pretty much be an all-day situation, about a 6 hour situation. So people would take off a day at work in order to do. He said it is where he has done these in the past. That's worked out better than to do it in an evening. We can definitely do it and look at that if that's board's preference. The one thing I would want to make sure that we do is folks need to know if you talk about people and you start to think in your mind who you would want to, we talk business folks. I think by the time we start next school year, we should have a good idea of who we're going to invite. Suggested that we send invitations to people and make it an event. Those type of things. They have to be involved in both. Yes. So that's an important part. So Aaron, that's an excellent question. So any other feedback on that?
Any of the dates work for me. So.
Are you gonna push it down on social media just to start getting a sign up interest?
We can definitely mention that as a part of our and we also are not in the week, but our board app. One of the things that he did mention is you also want to be very cognizant of getting certain facets of your community on board. And so don't just leave it to the chance of hey, interested in this, but really being direct with, we were going to work with the Chamber of Commerce. What folks are in our Lansing community that would be interested in helping with serving on this strategic plan. So we can do in both. We just have to make sure that people understand it's not the first 100 sign up. There could be some different facets there that we need to do. So
On the youth side of it, where it is for students.
Yep.
Kids normally don't like to give up unless they get something.
Good point.
Would it be possible to have this as a integrated in possibly a presentation project in one of the classes or something like that? So that, they're putting in 6 to 12 hours worth of work. Maybe not a grade, it would count towards a project or something, or look to your student leaders that you have in the buildings as a young task that, hey, if you get elected to student council or something like that, these are one of your duties that we're going to push for the next year. You're going to be involved in this process or something like that.
Good idea.
Kids normally just don't give up 12 hours unless they're getting something. Financially, we're not going to pay them, but we need to make sure that they feel like they also have a voice.
For sure. Can definitely talk then.
Any other discussion?
Yep, I've got it.
Okay, so we're going to the intermediate school HVAC.
One of the things that we do to look at moving forward, and this is as I have researched this information, we have two pieces here on HVAC that we need to discuss. We have discussed earlier about able to use ESSER dollars in order to do that. There are other opportunities, and I need to take just a quick moment to educate, and that is that we can go on our equipment side of things to have an RFP process, which is request for proposal, and in order to do that, and we can do that can be part of our action if we would like to do it on the equipment. Equipment is equipment at some point in time. And so my suggestion to you is that we look at entering a contract with the Tips USA group, the company that more or less takes that bid process. Any of the equipment that we purchase would have already been bid. And so when I talked to this gentleman, to this group, and there's lots of local districts, Leavenworth uses this group, other school districts around use the group in order to make our bid process easier for the equipment. That's the important part. So that bid, that is a requirement of us. Anything over 20,000 that we bid that. This group has already done that. Other ways that we do that, for example, Chris purchases computers. There's already a state contract in order to do that, where you're already guaranteed the best pricing. So this puts us to get the equipment coming, and then this company will help. We do not have to bid service. However, we should bid the bids, and that's the important part. And so this company will help us write the RFP that I'll bring back to you next month in order to do that for the service on the equipment. And that would include install, that would include, making sure we can monitor it. And they would write RFP with us in order to be able to make sure that we have all of the things that we need as part of these systems. Realize VAC systems are extremely complicated. It is not something that you want to leave to chance. We do have local vendors that we, Lippert Mechanical does the HVAC repairs for us. They could bid on that. And I think that this is also an excellent opportunity. I know to Aaron about some of the ways to do things, that you can also come up with, but your service, how many service hours that you're purchasing a year. And that'll all be a part of that RFP. Where we're under a time crunch, and I apologize for that, is we're looking to be out in 12 weeks. You start doing the math, we get that in the summer. And that's when we want to install, but we do need to start to do that. So I am asking for permission. And I know it's a leap of, but this is the way that pre-bids go, is that we would enter into a contract not to exceed $1,4,628. And that number is the number that I received to replace all of the units in that building. There are 13 units in that building in order to do that. And then so that would be through it's already pre-bid, so we are legally covered with pre-bid piece. And then the second thing is that this company would help us write the RFP that we would bring back to you in order for the install and for the service.
Who carries a warranty? Installer or provider?
The provider would be on the mechanical side of things at that point in time.
And what's the duration? You said maintenance packages, how many hours of service?
That would be something that we would work with that company about what yearly we would need to do. We would look at what we would have from last year Obviously, this building is one that ends up costing us a lot of money in repairs, and why it's been hot and or cold is that we no longer get parts for a lot of those. And so that is something that we would want to work with these experts on the equipment side of things that could help us write that RFP for the service.
So that $1 million and purchasing the page that you have for the forecasted list hours, it's gonna last several years per the warranty.
All of our equipment would be covered under warranty. At that point in time, the service part of that would be covered under a service agreement. We would write an RFP about how much that would cost us.
These are all brand new.
Yes.
It would be all brand new. In fact, you can't fix anything or get anything second hand.
No. And the different HVAC contacts to choose from, TMI, SG, Honeywell, Carrier Corporation, Commercial Air, Johnson Controls, Schneider Electric. These are the different folks inside of there that we can look at.
Okay, so you talking about changing the rooftop units, are you talking about changing the way it's controlled? Because you're looking multiple things on there. One, Honeywell and Johnson Controls. Those controllers control your damper system, your hot water valves,
Yes.
and your ability to see it on your screen on live side. Okay. Are you planning on changing out all your controllers?
That would be a part of this package. Yes. It has to talk to our current system.
It does, but currently your system that you have right now talks. You have one integrated system that you can
Yes.
log into between all of your buildings.
Yes.
I'm fearful that once you start going away from one integrated system to update this building, that you're going to have multiple logins to look at your HVAC systems. I'm concerned about the rooftop units, the air handlers, the actual condensing units, than I am the controlling units. The controlling units still let you see, hey, by the way, your building's cold, super cold. It's not controlling the flow of the air here. The unit that you're having problems with is the units. So I understand why we want to change our controllers and our own system when it's integrated between all of our buildings on the same. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Agree, guys?
And but a large part of that does become that's part of the RFP that you write on the service side of things, that they have to make talk.
Interoperable.
Yes.
Okay. Kind of like what we used. Okay.
So someone out then look, that's how you got.
Yes, that's where I got the $1 million. And actually that entire package was also intended for that entire package installed. So that's the amount that you would be looking at. The units for the tips should considerably less than that. But I'm asking for that amount of money because of the way that in order to get the units here, I know it can't be over that amount.
How much do you have in ESSER dollars?
ESSER 3 is 1.6.
All right. So
we've already got-
who wants to make a motion?
Yes.
How long in duration does this usually have to be everything replaced like this?
But these
When was
are
the last time it was?
I started in 1996, in that building of 1996, and those units were installed in 1990.
Wow, so we have that much of
So,
it.
yeah.
So projecting it in the future, we wouldn't have to do it until.
Yes, we would want to make sure that, and this is something that we'll be bringing to you as we are classified directors last. Let's start this conversation. These things should really be on our capital outlay plan for replacement. Hopefully, we don't have ESSER dollars in the next 25.
Yeah.
So
So
it's every 25 years.
Make a motion to move forward with the tips program so that way we can get the system that's long lead times on its way. If it's already pre-bid, already out there, and they're writing RFP for the service, then you're gonna bring them back after we bid RFP, the winning service contract. I'm assuming, are we putting any preferential treatment on local?
that's a board question. We one of the things that when we do that service piece, a large part of that is you also have to ensure that they are used to working on that type of equipment. But I absolutely agree that local is an excellent opportunity there. So we can definitely ask that question what their local presence
I'll
is.
second motion. Any other discussion?
We have projected like frame is like the supply chain management, I mean, negatively affect this. Can we?
Yeah, that's what we. So we get this part coming on the way. Should be able to do the next part at our
This
next
one,
meeting.
Right now, 2022.
Yeah. That's what they're saying.
All right.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I
All opposed?
Thank you.
So we're gonna move on to 7.10 LHS reports. Jeff had got a hold of me after our last meeting, mentioned that he'd like to get some information out to the book about the current state of our tennis courts.
Yeah, I mainly just wanted to bring it up. I know Alan on his report last month since he's just now taken over maintenance. I don't know a lot about the history of it. What I have heard, it's been a problem since they were built. They never were right when this was built. And unfortunately, they're probably out of warranty because the work was not done when it should have been done to repair them. I don't know, Dan, if you know kind of a timeline of what went on with it to kind of enlighten everybody. So
I can try my best. And all of the issues and when they start, I'm not 100% sure, but I do. We called the architect. We talked to Megan Warner. She is a local grad, and she also is an architect, Allison Miller, and she was on it. So you have the architects, and then you have the builders. And did you ever get a hold of Pat? We're trying to get this information on Thursday, so we're still trying to get a hold of some representatives from McPherson buildings. The surface would be warranted for 2 years, and the asphalt really has no warranty. It's kind of like your parking lots at that point in time. And she said that parts and pieces is what that's called. For example, say on the net, if those are the things, there would be no real warranty. As for when that started, if you want to keep chasing that, all I need is some board direction to keep chasing that. Exactly if we believe that should fall under warranty, that was built incorrectly, we would be able to pull those specs. I believe we would need to hire someone that knows more about that than our staff in order to really dig into that. And I can work with Megan as an architect. She has contacts in order to do that. So her response, I put on the soil samples were done, and Allison Miller has record of everything that they did at that time. We did have the drainage line was clogged and had go in and unclog that drainage line. The way those courts are built, we have an upper court and a lower court. That upper court has a lot of fill or clean rock, is my understanding, near the wall. And so the idea is the water that comes down that hill should come across, should sink and go down to what is a drainage line that is the bottom of that. For whatever reason, and I hate water. I like to drink it. I don't like it when it's coming up through the middle of our tennis courts. Is that drainage line initially was clogged. It ended up being a pothole, I think, or 2 or 3 or 7. probably get up in there, who knows? But once we got some water did drain, that, I'll tell you, if you go out and clock on any given afternoon, most of the time it's dry. And that was a bone of contention for a while. We go out, we look at that and it'd be dry. At 4 o'clock, started practice, there'd be water. And I think that's, you know, the heat during the day is what ends up drawing that. And we have cracks across the tennis courts in order to do that. I do want to note 2 other things that we haven't, 3. I don't remember the year, and I just remember that is it was, I want to say right. It was my first year as interim. We put some sump pumps in the court on the lower level of the court in order to try to drain that water off because we did have some water. The idea is that if it's coming up to a certain level, that those sump pumps that should drain off of those, the sump pumps would pump it off. It didn't help all that much. It was something that was a cheap fix in order to because realize that you're talking $120,000 to $150,000 to start this project. And so the next thing that we did in April 21, we did have a local digger Jim and company add additional French drains on the east and west side, cost of about $10,609. So when you're looking at the tennis courts on the right hand side, he drilled some or didn't drill. He dug some some holes to see water was standing, and we did have water standing on each side. So the idea behind it that you put some French drains in there, hopefully that will alleviate the water and running it on down to the pond. Unfortunately, water still is coming up, and so this last fall of 2021, and this is kind of where we're at. Jim was willing to come out and he did trench the tennis courts across where the big cracks were, and we still need to fix with some additional concrete and actually cover it up with the surface that we have. We need to have another company come do that. Where he did trench, those are dry. So there was water on top of there. What is not dry, and this is what makes me nervous, and I'm looking for board direction in order to spend some additional dollars on that. But what is not dry are the areas around the holes. You know, they're still coming up there, and there are some additional cracks that have water that can come up. So through the mitigating pieces that we've tried, unfortunately, those are things that have not worked. To be a perfect tennis court, wish that they were perfect. They aren't. And so I'm more than willing to chat as far as we want to chase it, including, you know, what other options we have with those that would be able to that, all the way to what does it cost for us to replace or resurface. That's where we're at.
Well, that's not what, I think we just need to understand that it's not going to be a cheap fix, so it's probably not going to hire us in.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
I was out, I went and looked at Saturday.
Yeah.
And because I hadn't been there, and all of the cleanouts for the tile on every side of the court are sitting full of water. They're not draining.
Okay.
So I don't know the whole story on it, but so some of the things we've done still not working the way they should be. So I don't think we should spend any more money trying to fix something that has not worked so far without doing our research and seeing where we're at before we just keep throwing money.
So our French drains are not working. There's because there's still water standing and.
There's cleanouts on each cord,
Okay.
2 on the lower, 2 on the higher,
Okay.
and you can pull the lid up and the pipes are still completely full of water. They're supposed to drain out down to the pond, but at the pond end, they're dry. So the water's not getting from the courts to the pond. And the sump pump is full of water still.
I'm not an expert on playing tennis, but I went up there to look at them myself, and I don't feel like the tennis courts are serviceable right now. You can play tenants on those
No.
courts, the way they are right now. Even if they were not.
Yeah. And it's, the biggest part is it's really a shame that we have that beautiful facility out there and then a crap tennis court. Costs a lot of money, but unfortunately non-usable. I'm under the assumption they still practice, they're practicing there, but they haven't been able to any meets competitions there.
So what are,
So,
so what do we do then? I mean, what are we?
That's kind of why that's part of this discussion. I'm looking for those, once again,
So are our students doing if they can't use those courts for, matches or whatever? Then where are they going? What are they doing?
we play our matches away.
Away.
Yes,
Okay.
we do that. It's not a great situation.
Dan, I would suggest,
Okay.
before we do anything, just spend any more money.
Mhm.
We need to back and find out what's actually underneath the courts now. If there is conduit tile or drainage system in place. Because we're not gonna fix the top unless we fix the bottom first.
Mhm.
So I think we should quit throwing money out until we fix the root problem.
So say that again. You would suggest that we, what is it?
Try to go back to the original plan, find out from McPherson what is actually in there. If there is an under drain system or tile underneath the courts.
So look at the as-built at the point in time.
Yes, start there
Okay.
and work our way out.
And obtain your soil samples.
Because I went back and looked at the project manager's notes from 2014, and most of the dirt work for the tennis was done in the winter of 2014. And that's not a good time to get good compaction soil with us, January, February.
I can do that, and I'm not gonna do that because I'm not an expert. I'll have someone do that and get that for us. Anything else on that?
I like to say, Dan, we'll start there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we come to a price and then we'll see how long it takes to be able to afford it to do it.
So are they saying that, are they thinking we have underground springs? Is that what maybe your issue, or maybe with just with put in properly?
I would assume that it's an underground spring the way that it acts.
Yeah.
Because it'll be perfect dry, especially on hot days. It will definitely start to see them. Okay. Anything on that?
On 7.11.
Yeah.
And Carla, I think you're going to lead us in IPS and CCR.
This one worked. Yeah, this one worked.
And this is just a discussion, no judgment, it's just kind of thoughts to get us all familiar with the IS process and talking CCR and advisory and how they kind of merge and support our students.
Can I throw in one thing, Carla? Because Carla and I had a lengthy conversation, and this is just to get some information out there in order for us to do. So some of the questions come up tonight will be things that we were back on. It's not something that we're looking at really answering all these questions this evening. So that's an important part. I also want myself and anybody else involved in that process in order to make sure that they can be prepared and in order to present some.
Yeah.
But we want kind of like the tennis conversation, just to get some of this information.
No, yeah, that's a great point, Dan. It's just kind of open it for discussion so that the administrators and all the stakeholders can kind of hear what our questions are and then report back in the future. That's great. So college and career readiness. So this is all from KSDE. This is kind of like the lay down. This is generic. None came from me. It's all cut and pasted from documents. And this is the definition of the ITS and a little bit of the background of January 2014. KSDE went to the State Board of Ed, another entity, and recommended that the districts implement individual plans of study for students in grade through 12 for the following reasons. And then so on and so forth. I'm preaching to the choir early because many of you know why. The first one on individual plans of study should be considered as best practice. I will read this so it's a definition. For the districts can help Kansas students obtain a suitable vision of path toward college and readiness, college and career readiness, and will address the gap between the percentage of students enrolling and the percentage of students earning credit during their first year of enrollment in 2- and 4-year post-secondary institutions. We want them to be career ready. And then the second 2 individual plans of study are addressed as part of the career awareness and guidance criteria in the current draft of Kansas new education model. And then 3, the Kansas CSDE can provide support to education as well as to vendors of student information systems to ensure that the IPS are implemented in ways that will be cost effective and not unreasonably taxing to students or educators. And I think that's key. This is how we embrace our students and figure out what they want to be when they grow up and engage them on those levels. And I will not rest, we can go to the next one because I have snagged. These are questions just to throw out there. And so LMS and LHS kind of know where as a board maybe needs more information onto. Again, it's just, we don't want you to present us something in a vacuum. We want you to give questions that we may have to be able to give us feedback. So CCCR, how are those students engaged? I know it used to be career cruising, now Zello or et cetera. How is that done? And then advisory / CCR teachers, how the IPS process pitch to the students. And what does the IPS form? What does the form look like? I assume it's digital, filling in fields. What does that look like that we keep as the product of process that goes from one year to the next? Was the IPS passed from advisory in 8th grade to doing that handshake to the CCR teacher who is going to take that student 9 through 12? And how do we teachers to support students in this IPS process? The parent-teacher conferences, do they talk about at IPS? LMS, I'm assuming probably more and more. LHS, I never got to do that. We didn't talk to the CCR teacher in high school. We ourselves. Market value assets, that's a cool catchphrase that's out there. It kind of talks about rigor and giving the students some type of either certification or through the CTE. It applies to general ed, AP, possibly CTE. Just having that student challenge themselves a little bit. Other schools area are using that. Sometimes they call it diploma +1. And just like having the student do something that they really didn't expect, but hey, let me throw my hat in the ring and challenge myself a little bit to stretch myself, not to stress myself, but to stretch myself academically. And then portrait of a graduate, that's a phrase all KSDE, looking at that whole person. And I'm going to offer some resources. So this pack will be available to everybody. BLS, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. They have the occupational outlook handbook that forecasts careers on the year you're going to graduate and everything from there up to there and graduate from high school or even forecasting into the future from college. If you do that, or what career and what's coming up. And then I want to, the last bullet, like Prince, do we do Prince? We have Perkins grants for some of our pathways?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And I know the real world learning article with Kaufman grants, that's kind of a new thing that's there. And then the Vanilla Kaufman family, God bless them. There's so much that they've been into that in other schools doing this around our area. And it's just handshake with engaging public. And it could parlay into internships and great opportunities for students to get real hands-on experience. Okay, and then the next one, Dan. Thank you. So this is the criteria that the college, the Kansas Board of Regents is around since 1925. and represents a classical education. It may not be everyone's goal, but I believe that as a CCR teacher, I would want my CCR teacher to know about it and to consider guide my student in a direction to, hey, consider this. And it's basically the meat and potatoes, reading, writing, and arithmetic as far as 4 years of different things. However, if they do well, and it doesn't have to be all AP classes, it just in that. But if you do well, there are opportunities to be a Kansas scholar. And that could benefit the students financially to go into college or doing their education in higher ed. Okay, and then the next one, here's college in Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Okay, less. Offers students outlook on what jobs will be in demand the year they graduate. As I said, there are K through 12 games resources that we aren't using immediately, and even in the career exploration of our K through 12 going up into our elementary and then our later elementary, and bring the occupations, they do information such as what is required education, what training level that you need to walk into there, the pay related. And I cut and pasted that in there. Here's bringing the BLS into your classroom, and this kind of gives you a snapshot of young kids, and then all the way through the LES, the LIS, the LMS, and high sites. So those sites that I put up there, you probably need to click and put them in, and you don't have to if you want to. You can put them. Okay, so no, we won't do that. It is a resource available to you.
If it's a resource.
All right, let's please go on then. That's okay, no problem. I knew it'd be long. Okay, and this is again the market value assets. The definition on there: industry value and recognized skills acquired in high school that create a seamless transition from school to post-secondary education and or the workplace. These two depictions, the one on the left is 9th grade, freshman and sophomore years are on these, and the path leads to college. However, when we know, and in a couple slides from now, when a little bit, there will be a CE slide on there. But this, could you, oh, thank you so much. No, that's okay. So you kind of like the 8th to 9th grade transition. Yeah, it is still even blurry. Yeah. But you're looking at meaningful.
That's as good as it's gonna get.
Oh, that's fine. Academic goal setting. I know that goal set is part of some of the curriculum that we do in SEL. Is that right? Which is awesome.
We'll report back on the things that we
awesome. And then going down to even selecting extracurricular activities that may enhance you as you go into you as a student as you go into your future. And you can go to the next one here.
Yep.
Okay, and then that's culminating junior and senior year. Right, if you go on. CE, career and technical education. These are our ways. They're based on the 16 career clusters. We'll take a look at the right one. Career and technical education is the practice of teaching specific career skills to students in middle school, high school, and post-secondary institutions. And then if you could go into the blacker side of the words. There you go. CT is focused on, I think this is key, on skills. This differs from functional and university-based education, which is based on theory. But I say it can work together. Pedagogically, what is education and what is training? I'm sure that's been something that you as educators have looked at through your life. What is the of that? CTE is applicable to almost every educational range. Understanding the careers as early as 6th grade and building on those. Students can earn the blue is certifications. Your CNA comes to mind. They need to serve their careers. And of course, we're already doing this. This is no surprise. CTE tracks don't students to simple careers. In fact, many students use these courses as preparation before moving on to community or community college or university. So it takes some people a little longer to find out what they want to do with their life, and that is totally okay. And so then the next one, this, throw that in here. This is an example of Tennessee, and I won't read all of them, but it's just, this is that handshake to say that CTE and APP is not mutually exclusive. It can very much be complementary. And I think actually in this day and age, 2022, it's fundamental integral. You have on the left side near the asterisk are the various career paths, more or less, or your career clusters. Environmental natural resource management, it may match up with environmental science as an AP class. So those CCR teachers, again, hopefully that handshake is, hey, why don't you try this market value asset, take this AP class, because it's really going to be complementary to environmental science and so forth. Skipping down on visual production, AP English language and composition or journalism, because that's you're gonna do things in film and creative process and just being able to speak. Public management administration, AP government and politics, learn it early. And then of course engineering, AP physics, got April Newton, right? Newton's laws, it's their law. And so on and so forth. This sounds perfectly with a computer, and so on, biology and physics. The next one, Dan.
Good.
Okay, and then these are just some guiding questions. AP classes, CTE courses could offer rigorous broad student experience. Students incorporate view with the CTE programs of study. They're engaged in challenging academic coursework that aligns with and supports post-high school plans. And then these questions down here, give teachers, why don't we support all students who succeed with both of them? Give teachers necessary supports, professional developments, and possibly certifications as if they're similar in matching to teach both AP and CTE courses. This is future. We're looking at strategic planning coming up. So to be in the future too, but we can certainly consider some of these things now. And then again, that's more reference for you in blue that you can click on later. Okay, and then one more. It's just an alibi. CCR advisory resources conditions. I don't know what happened to it. Take your children to work. Is that still a thing? I don't know.
Only when they're sick.
Only when they're sick. That's pretty good there.
But I think enhancing those and just kind of something that it's good. It gives that exposure in your early age. Parent-teacher conference days. Hey, why not when the parents come in, if they're in some kind of swanky field, hey, why don't you come talk in this room and students can come and ask you questions because you already have them at your school, you have them at your facility. It's a possibility. It would take coordination. It would take some of that engagement. It is doable and it has been done. International students, hold up. We live like within 10 miles of 5 countries represented, and that's up on Fort Leavenworth. I mean, they come to us. So taking those resources, I think it would be pretty expensive, and I'm sure that it's been done through the years. I haven't seen it done lately. Of course, with COVID, it's kind of stifled many things. But these are things that we can creatively get out and look at. Alumni engagement. I believe that we have even living alumni in this area that all they would want is an invitation. They would just pour everything into it. The internships that could run that. Community engagement service organizations like Rotary, Lions, you've done. I mean, you can find most any occupation or career are represented in those. Capstone projects. I'm just going to beat that drum because it's a C project. It could focus on career exploration. It could culminate just little by little each month of somebody's senior year, and maybe it would be a valuable exercise for them to go through a process and then do a presentation to someone in that field at the end. And that would be their, personal job to do that, their personal initiative. So just wanted to offer that Just thoughts on that.
I guess from this board, our next steps is if we're interested in learning more about it at some point in time, we would want to put that on the agenda and something that that we can discuss. A large part of this is there are specific questions there. It's also a part of a bigger thing that we do. I would really like to see us, if we're going to work on these things, to put that we bring back up Board of Education life cycle, and we start to talk about when we're going to do that. And a big part of that, and I'm just going to throw it out there because one thing that I think we've tried really hard, and Don Dolby did an excellent job of helping us through the process. But we want to be reactionary and more visionary. And a big part of and Carla, I love the information, that when we met, but a big part of that is allowing the time and really putting it on under a when then this is going to happen. And not because I have staff members also that want to do a very good job when they present and want to be thorough. There's a lot of other things on there that we didn't that we also discussed in our advisory time, in our CCCR time, and how we do those different. And so I think that's an important part. So for me, the next step is, when we start talking about, we Kansas can, those differences in Kansas can. This happens to be one of them, is college and career ready and post-secondary success, and can we report out to that? That's really how that could happen. So for me, I would like to see us, and maybe next month we can bring back up the board life, and we can discuss, when myself and my staff feel like this would be an excellent time in order to do that. And that's just my half cent in a nickel conversation. So that's what I would like to see. Be respectful of my staff, make sure that it also fits at a certain time in order to do that. We have very busy times in schools. For example, this last week we did the ACT. Having our counseling office pulled away or doing anything else during that time would not have been a good choice. And I think that's a really important thing. For me, I'd like to see it bring back the board life cycle and add this or anything else that we think we need to do. If that's agreeable with the crowd. So
does anybody have any specific timeline they're looking at for getting our thoughts together and developing a plan?
What do you mean?
I want to make sure that we're meeting everyone's expectation on the board. This was a discussion item for everyone, so
Right.
or for most everyone here.
Or I don't know if that's too soon.
Well, it would be something that we need to have if I have 4 members that want us to work more on the information. I would like to see us bring it and have that conversation, that board life cycle conversation, because kind of, to me, that's a board level conversation. That's a big part, because one thing that we don't want to end up doing is feeling like, if there are issues, then I can address those issues specifically. And if it's overarching things, we also have to allow administration to do our job at that point, because the board is what we want to make sure that kids are college and career ready, right? That is all students. That's the goal. How we accomplish that is things that are administrative in there. I think Jeff said it well, and that's their job, right? And making sure that and that's where it falls. And so if we have individual questions from board members, part of that also is there's a difference between answering questions and giving larger presentations, because we want to, anything that we present, and I think Carla did tonight, we want to be prepared in order to do that to the best of our ability. For me, I would like to see us, if we're going to do that, let's cycle back the board life cycle and let's plan for when that makes sense.
That makes sense to use the word life cycle. Yeah, then just report back, because they're scheduling right now, right? Those disappearance.
Yes. And the other thing that we do have to make sure of is, a lot of the things that you mentioned are things that we do currently do.
Exactly.
And make sure that we do. And I think sometimes, and I'm saying that out loud so everybody hears, because many times it's our culture. When I say this, our culture is that I assume when somebody asks me a question that it's something that I'm efficient in, right? That's not the case. And Carla and I had a rather lengthy conversation the other day, and that's not the case with her. But being able to do that as a board, I think have to have the life cycle conversation again. So I say we put that on next month and move forward with that. If that makes sense.
Sounds good.
And maybe that's a work session, then the principals would come in and talk to us about it.
Yeah, we could definitely look at the board life cycle and see where that fits. The other thing that we do have.
Four of us agree that it needs to be on a work session and come in and vote on it like that.
Yeah.
As a group, collectively.
Absolutely. So I'll put that on board life cycle next month to have that conversation again. I mean, there'll probably be a couple other things just from conversations that we will want to add in that, because that does a good roadmap as to what we're doing. That's really important part.
That wraps up.
Oh, we got 7:12. We got one, and hopefully it'll be a quick one. It's great. It's kind of like I knew that we were gonna have a conversation. This has been in the works for I think the first we met October, possibly September, October. This is with our University of St. Mary's. It's an excellent opportunity. This is just a memorandum of understanding that allows us to partner with them to offer some additional credit courses. We currently do dual credit, mainly with Donnelly College, and that includes our our English classes. We have some additional classes. What the University of St. Mary's will help us. There are some of the additional classes that we do not have certified teachers in order to teach that at that college level. Let me explain that real quick. And the idea behind Donnelly, you have to have a master's usually in the field. For example, for myself, I have a mathematics degree from Washburn University, and I could not teach math at the college level because I do not have a master's in mathematics. And that's just a regents type of a requirement. What the University of St. Mary's will allow us to do, and kind of the way it's structured, we have those that are HLC, which qualified teachers as adjunct professors, and they get paid for credit hour. But the other part of that is that the University of St. Mary's will partner with us also to provide a teacher of record. And what that teacher of record ends up doing, for example, one of the things that we don't have somebody qualified to teach at the college level would be psychology and sociology. And that professor from University of St. Mary's, we have two options. They can send someone to us in order to teach that. There's logistical nightmares there, but that is an option that we can have through the MOU. The other option that we can have through the MOU is that we are able to have them be a teacher of record, and we will have a classroom teacher in the classroom. And they co-teach that at that point in time. Think of that person as a mentor to that teacher, providing the exact same curriculum that they offer through the psychology and sociology world. And so our kids would be able to receive college credit through that process also. So this is a new memorandum of understanding of agreement with the University of St. Mary's.
This is an action item.
Yes.
Make a motion to enter
minimum premium, the same year, dual credit program.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
We've got two executive sessions tonight. The first is going and talk about negotiation pursuant. So I probably have, we probably have 30 minutes on that. We can try for less, but by the time,
30.
yeah, I can do 30.
So we'll just do a rundown.
Yep, and then we have to come, the way, we have to go in just for that reason, a little education for everybody. Executive session rules, as when we go into exec session during this time, we can only just discuss the negotiations process. We'll be coming up with negotiations, our letters are due by the end of the month, for us to provide that.
I move we go into executive session to discuss administration proposals for negotiations pursuant to the exception for employee negotiations under COMA, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 09:14. All in favor? Opposed? Yeah, that's right, 20 to 14. Thank you, that's a good correction.